Oh, they've been knocking on the door for quite some time here, Teak. As we know, last 4 years, double-digit wins, but last 4 years, quick bounces from the postseason. And with a gentleman now who joined by, who's been there since '99, and he saw and really helped shape what's one of the best rosters in football. Some really lean times, so things have turned around. We know Cincy is quite talented. Duke Tobin, Director of Player Personnel with us here on Tiki and Tierney, CBS Sports Radio. Duke, how you feeling today, bud? What's happening?
Oh, I'm feeling good. We've got the Vikings in town, so it's always kind of neat to get a look at another team and see how you stack up. And they're a good football team, a lot of good players, and so it's a good day around here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, eventually want to start popping somebody else. I hear you, and Tiki lived through that. You know what? As a national show, Duke, can you tell me, very curious to see how you guys process this. When we talk about the Bengals, and we talk about you guys quite a bit, number one, because you're very good, but also the shortcomings in the playoffs, as I documented before, and you know it, you lived through it. Inside the building, the pressure that we speak to, but we're not there, is it palpable? I mean, let's face it, man. At some point, it's time to crack through. Do you feel time ticking?
Well, I don't know if we feel time ticking, but we've always felt a sense of urgency. That's just part of being a good football team. Any good football team feels a sense of urgency, and we feel that. We were disappointed by the events of last year, but we're not dwelling on it, and we're not hanging our head, and we're not saying what could have been. We're looking forward to this year, and we've got a big challenge ahead of us. It's not easy to get back to the playoffs, and we recognize that. And so we've got a long road before we can exercise those demons. We're worried about the New York Jets and the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens and such.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Obviously, early on in training camp, and you mentioned being in a joint practice with the Vikings. Do you fear that sometimes? Because sometimes I felt like I never wanted to get into an altercation that could lead to an injury. Some young kid trying to make the team. Is it a good thing or bad thing, these joint practices, in your mind?
Well, I think Coach Lewis has been very smart about it, and we've been fortunate to work with good professional teams and well-coached outfits. We've done this now for the last this will be our third year. We went to Atlanta. We had the Giants here. Those were excellent experiences. I thought it helped us grow as a football team and assess where we were. And we know Mike Zimmer very well and the rest of their coaching staff, and we feel the same way about them. So we don't anticipate any problems. We'll think we'll get more benefit than anything out of it.
Talking to Duke Tobin with us here, Director of Player Personnel for the Bengals. Get ready. You mentioned the Jets. They open up the season against the Jets on September 11th here. All right, let's get to the quarterback specifically, Duke. And it's amazing for a league and so many teams, and you can listen without even thinking, that are just constantly, perpetually searching for quarterbacks. You guys have one who's pretty good. Andy Dalton, 50 and 26 as a starter. He's thrown 50 more touchdowns than interceptions as a starter. And for a second-round pick, he's really paid dividends here. But I think we want more, and I think Bengal fans need more, as does the organization. What is the weakness that he needs to fix to go from good to great?
Well, in our opinion, before the injury last year, he had made that switch. He was playing great. He was leading our team, taking the necessary steps to be the face of what we do, and I think everybody had rallied around him. The injury really hurt us. We fortunate enough to have a guy with a lot of moxie to put in there, in A.J. McCarron. But, he was at that level, in my opinion, last year prior to that injury. So I think he needs to build on where he was at that point. I think he can. I don't think he's reached his ceiling as well as he's played. I don't think he's reached his ceiling, nor do I think he feels that way. He's a competitive guy, always wants to learn, always wants to grow. So we're very happy to have him. He's obviously the most important part of our team, and the quarterback is always the most important part of every team. And when you got one, you want to hang on to him. You want to grow with him, and he's grown. I mean, he doesn't know what it's like not to go to the playoffs. So that he's a winner, and those are the things that really matter to us. I think some of the technical things he's grown with over the years, his footwork, his progression, his downfield accuracy, those things he continues to improve on. So, we're very fortunate to have him and happy that he's here.
One of the stories, Duke, that's been following your Bengals team is your tight end, Tyler Eifert, and really what he said about the Pro Bowl. We all know he went there last year, tore a ligament in his ankle. And I think in the context of what happened at the Hall of Fame game, these injuries in games that kind of don't matter. I mean, obviously preseason matters, but you get what I'm getting at. Do you like the fact that guys are going to do things that may potentially get them hurt postseason?
Well, I think that there's positives and negatives to All-Star games. There's always positives for the league and the exposure that it brings, and there's a risk for the players in the off chance that they get hurt. We initially didn't think this was a big injury. It was an injury that didn't heal the way that we thought it would heal, and we had to go back in and actually take action on it. That's what put it back a little bit. But I'll let Tyler speak for himself. I do see benefit in the league having exposure after the season and in the off season and so forth. But there is a risk, and it's got to be worth it. And I think every player has to weigh that for themselves. And I'll let Tyler speak for himself on that.
Duke, how would you assess the offseason here? You lost Sanu, you lost Jones, you didn't trade McCarron. Some people thought you might maybe get back some assets. If I'm not mistaken, your first-round pick, your corner, hurt his pec. I don't know how long he's out. It seems like it's been a little bumpy. I would imagine you would agree with that assertion, right?
It has. I don't think we're at full strength right now. We wish we were. Losing those two receivers, those were important parts of our offense. But we focus on trying to re-sign our guys. The reality of the league and the reality of the NFL today is you can't re-sign everybody. And we made an effort, and those guys did what they felt was in their best interest, and we don't disparage them for that. We wish them well, and we look to reload. And that's a position that we've added a lot to, and Brandon LaFell's come in and done a nice job, and we've got some young guys pushing for play time, and we'll see how that builds back. But that was that wasn't what we wanted to see happen, but we knew that was a distinct possibility to lose those guys. And then on the injury front, it is you put together your team, and when pieces start dropping off, it hurts.
Yeah.
But you can't dwell on it. We don't dwell on those things. It's the next man up. And right now we're down to our third tight end, and we're working with him, and he's showing that he's got a lot of potential as well. And so we'll just put the next guy in and coach him up, and that's what I think one of our strengths is getting guys ready to play.
Really not much else you could do. I don't think you'll take this the wrong way, but I want to preface it with I hope you don't, because you've been good with us here with your time. Talking to Duke Tobin, player personnel director for the Bengals. Let's face it, Duke, one of the narratives, aside from the renaissance for the Bengals the last few years, is that historically a reluctance to pay. I mean, that's just the word on the street. It is what it is. So when you talk about Sanu and Jones bouncing, can you say that there was an equal value deal on the table, or did the Bengals try to save some money?
No, we weren't trying to save some money. I won't get into the details of what the offers were and whether they were more or less.
Well, were they equal?
Some of the opportunities put in there, but all you got to do is do a little research on cash and cap spending and see where we sit in the league, and I think that question probably wouldn't be asked.
No, I would respect. Duke, I would respect.
We're actually one of the highest spending teams in the league, and I know the narrative, and the narrative is an old narrative. I don't agree with the narrative, but I think we deal in the realities, and the realities are that we pay our players. We pay our players more than we go out and shop for others, but we pay our players, and our cap spending is, I think, pretty easy to look at and analyze, and so we're proud of the way that we pay. I certainly don't view us. I view us in running a business the right way, but I view us in certainly rewarding players who have earned it.
Well, listen, I understand, I respect that, but I would respectfully disagree about the cap or not asking the question, and the reason I'll defend myself on that. Tiki lived it, and I talk it. We all know that if there's a player that you want to retain, there's other ways to skin some money and keep that player on the team. I mean, it's a bad look when you lose two wide receivers who are good.
Well, I think that you've got to look at the guys we were able to retain as well. We had a lot of guys up, And again, you can't keep everybody, and people make decisions. We don't get to make the decisions for the players. We get to talk to them, negotiate with them, but at the end they make their own decisions. And if they make the decision to leave, then there's nothing we can do about that, and we wish them well. Those guys performed well for us and were an important part of our teams in the past, and we'll find new guys that'll be important parts going forward. We certainly retained a large portion of our team, and we're happy with the way that the off season went as a whole. And we feel good about where we are as a football team, and certainly about where we pay in relation to the other 32 teams, and from a cash and a cap standpoint.
Duke Tobin, Director, Player Personal, Bengals, with us here on Tiki and Tierney.
A guy you don't have to worry about for a couple more years contract-wise is Vontaze Burfict, and we all know some of the issues on field. I wonder from a front office standpoint, because I know this guy, and not him specifically, but this kind of guy. You hate him if you're on the other team. You love him if he's on your team. How do you guys internally feel about some of the things he's been through and how he plays the game?
Well, Vontaze is an important part of our defense. I think he plays an intense form of defense. I think he has a rare feel for the football game. I mean, I think it comes naturally for him. And I think he's kind of a natural leader when he's on the field, and he's got a flair for making plays. And those are the kind of players that you want to build around. He's a guy that's proven that we want to build around him. We're certainly happy to have him, proud of him, and we recognize that there are other teams that might feel differently, and maybe we feel differently about some of their players, but it's what has happened here over the past. I don't think he would proclaim to be perfect, and I think there are things he would do different. But sum total, he's an important part of what we do, and we support him, and we're happy to have him for sure.
Hey, Duke, as you know, you've been around the game a long time, and mentioned, you started there in '99 when things were lean, and you've been a big part of the resurgence, and I give you a lot of credit on that. You know that the division strength is very cyclical, that, sometimes division runs, like the NFC West is very good now, but a couple of years ago it wasn't. How would you assess the AFC North in relation to improving, plateauing out, a little bit in a demise? How do you see it from that angle?
Well, I fully anticipate it to be another very tough battle this year. It's historically been a good league. It has excellent coaches. It has very capable quarterbacks. I know Hugh very well up in Cleveland. Hugh's going to do a great job there. They're going to be a very competitive team for the other three teams of us in the division. They have, I don't think Pittsburgh's going anywhere, and I know Baltimore too well. Those guys will field a highly competitive football team, and Coach Harbaugh will do a great job putting it together. So I don't anticipate any of the teams being pushovers in our league. Not that any teams are in the NFL, but we look at our division as a very tough sled, and we're going to push at it as hard as we can. But we don't take anything for granted within our division. Those are good football teams, and we don't anticipate them going away. We anticipate them continuing to be good. When Pittsburgh goes away, you tell me that doesn't happen.
It never happens.
We don't plan on going away either. So
there you go.
There you
boy.
go.
Nice overview, Duke. Nice overview. We just started our camp previews today, so you're the first one. 31 more to go. The Bengals. We'll be watching, obviously. Nice chat. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Take care, Duke.
You bet.